very glad to be here for the latest Soul Trader interview with a very good friend of mine, good business associate, contact of mine, Grant Leboff. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, it's really funny when you're shaking somebody's hand and you know them. But I'm so glad that you're here and you're being interviewed here. You've had an extraordinary life. You started out as a musician.
Yes.
You are an international speaker, author of, I know it's a growing number of books. Is it 3 now?
3, yeah.
3 now, and I know you're writing the fourth one,
yes,
right?
I am.
Yeah. And you own a business called Sticky Marketing Club. You're a marketing guru, you travel around the world doing that. Tell me, in a nutshell, how would you describe yourself and what is it that you do?
All right, that's a good question. So, I always say I'm a speaker, a writer, and consultant.
Right.
That's how I kind of talk about myself.
Right.
Speaker, because I go around the world speaking about marketing and sales. Writer, because I write a lot of articles and magazines and things like that. And as you said, currently starting my 4th book, but got 3 others. And then consultant, I do a lot of marketing strategy work, so working with businesses on their marketing roadmaps, their marketing strategies for themselves.
So I think one of the things interesting, why I'm really keen to interview you is that I remember we first met, I'm trying to work out how many years ago, I'd say about 8, 9,
Yeah,
8, 9. We were teenagers probably at the time, networking, and you've gone on that journey that many people who are soul traders, and with soul trader playing on the U, S-O-U-L, people who they might be a micro business owner, they may just be one person, that journey where they want to start and grow their own business, being their own boss, and you've done that. You've successfully, you've started business, you've sold a business also, and you've got successful consultancy in you being you as an expert. So you know there are a number of different things here. How did you always know that you wanted to be your own boss?
That's a really good question, because no is the answer. In fact, I go further, I'd say I never did.
Right.
It was never about being my own boss, if that makes sense.
Right.
So for me, it was always just following what was natural at the time. So starting my own business was really about, I had some ideas that the business I was working for at the time weren't really ready to embrace for whatever reasons that was.
Was that in marketing field?
That was, yeah, it was in sales and marketing.
Right.
And I decided, well, then I'll go and do it for myself, because it wasn't about me, it was I just believed in the idea.
Right.
And that business grew, and eventually I sold it. So I've always sort of gone on the path of what I wanted to do next. It wasn't, having my own business was an outcome. It wasn't the reason for doing it. I know some people go into business because they want to do it for themselves. There's nothing wrong with that, but that wasn't my journey at all.
So the journey was just following that passion, and I think that will so resonate with many people listening to this. You were, prior to that, you were a musician. Tell us a little bit about that, because you weren't unsuccessful in that. And I think you're probably more successful than me. Tell me a little bit about that. Was that did you start out wanting to be a musician or a songwriter? Or,
well, again, it was like any creative, I suppose, because really that's what I am. I'm a creative.
Yeah.
So for me, I started writing songs. I think I actually wrote my first song was about 8 or 9.
Yeah.
But I started writing songs seriously in my teenage years.
Right, yeah.
And I played the saxophone at the time as well. I haven't played that for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And I started. It was during the time when every pop song had to have 32-bar saxophone.
Yeah, I was listening to lots of stuff from the 80s and so on, and thinking I like Madness stuff, and thinking how good the sax.
So as a sax player, I got quite a bit of session work, because they weren't to a penny.
Right.
And that got me into the music industry, and then I became I was writing,
right.
and I got into production and arranging as well, and that was great fun.
Yeah.
But it was, for me, it was an outlet for the creativity, and I got taken away from that mainly because of what was going on in the digital world and the internet and the web, and I just found that so much more exciting. People find that hard to believe, but I just found it more exciting, more interesting, and I started to gravitate more and more towards that. And here I am today.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So you decided you're working for a company that and had ideas, didn't really try with them. You decided to go it alone. And now here you are, 3 successful books. You travel, internationally as a speaker. You get paid a lot of money, I'm sure, as a speaker. And these are the things that many people, when you're wanting to be your own boss or a consultant, dream of. Grant, how do you think that how have you done that? How have you achieved that? Have you always been just somebody who's got a goal, driven, and go for it? What to you is the key to the success that you've had to date?
Yeah, I think it's about believing in what you do. So I've never done anything for the sake of doing it. So I didn't write, I know I've written 3 books now, but I never wrote a book because I wanted to write a book. I wrote a book because I had some things that I wanted to say, and thankfully a publisher thought they were worth saying as well.
And tell us about the first book then on that, because I guess then the first book must have been the first thing that you wanted to really say and share and express.
So I was running a direct marketing business, and we did a lot of direct selling, and it was about understanding that the web had really changed the way the customer journey. So some of the things I say now sound kind of obvious in 2015, but back then they weren't. So things like the customer was more empowered, the customers were doing a lot of their own research, which meant they knew an awful lot more when they came to the supplier, whatever it was. And it was about, you have to sell in a different way in a digital world. And that really was what the book was about. But I was very passionate about the fact that I looked at so many people, I believed, who were not doing it right, who hadn't realised the world had changed around them.
Right.
So they were still doing the old things that may have been right in a pre-digital age, but weren't right in a digital age.
Right.
So that was the catalyst for the first book. And I just felt I had something to say, and starting my own business was about, I thought I had some ideas and I had no outlet for them, so I created the outlet for them. And that's what it's always been about for me. So I think if you do something about which you're passionate, because it does take drive and it does take dedication, but it's much easier to get out of bed in the morning and have that drive when you're passionate about what you're doing, I think.
Is it just passion? So you had the ideas, you had the passion, you saw something that you had these ideas, you knew the other people weren't resonating, you spotted what was going on with the web. What else was down to that success? Because then with your first business, you built it, you grew it, so presumably there were staff for all those kind of challenges. Yeah. How did you get from there to there? You know, because I know it sounds like a silly question, but I'm curious to know how did you do that? Did you have a clear plan? Did you really suss out the market? I know you had the drive and the instinct, but how did you actually get that business from zero to selling it?
So I think it's three things. I think the first thing is the passion. Yeah. You have to do something which you believe. I think that's very, very important. I think just to get out of bed every day and hate what you do, why be doing that for yourself? That's crazy. So that's the first thing that I think is really, really important. I think the second thing is you have to be realistic. Is it commercially viable? And for me, in some ways, that is the difference between a business and a hobby. You know, there's no reason why you shouldn't follow your dream, but if it's not commercially viable, it doesn't make it less valid. It just means it may not be a business.
Right.
So I really did believe, with a little bit of research and a bit of understanding of the marketplace, that my idea was commercially valid. I mean, it was, that was proven, but I think you have to be hard with yourself. I think sometimes people have this notion, oh yeah, I can make money out of this, and really it's not a business. So I think you have to be hard about that with yourself, because a lot of times friends will tell you what they want to hear, and you can go to business gurus who will tell you that it's no good when it is good, you know. So that's the second thing. So you have to be honest about that with yourself. And the third thing is take advice. So I think when you say how did I get to that journey of starting a business and then getting up to a number of staff and selling it, the flippant answer to be, I'm not quite sure how that happened now, but I do know at the time probably the best thing I did was take really good advice. So I found a business mentor who I used to go and see on an ad hoc basis. It wasn't formal, it wasn't like once a month, but as and when. And they used to ask me the questions perhaps I hadn't asked myself or hadn't thought of. And that made a massive amount of difference, I think, to getting to where I needed to get to, because they often pointed out the pitfalls before I'd seen them, or challenged me in a way I hadn't been challenged. And I would say to anybody starting out, find a mentor, someone that you trust, someone that's perhaps been there before, to guide you through, because it can be a bit lonely otherwise.
How did you, I mean, picking up then on that particular point in terms of the lonely aspect, I'd imagine there's a lot of time and energy put in and drive, and I know that you're somebody who's very, I want to say in the best sense of the word, driven. That's a self-driven, in a really good sense of that word. There's that passion. Has it been a tough and lonely journey at times? And how have you balanced that with you're a family man as well? How have you balanced that? How have you made that happen?
Okay, there's a few things I would say about that. The first thing is, yes, it can be lonely at times, because, look, nothing ever goes 100% right. You get knockbacks, you get things that don't work out, you have a bad day or whatever. And it's very easy sometimes, because so many people's businesses, especially sole traders, it's about them ultimately. So it's very, very easy. Sometimes it's hard to distance you from the business because you are the business, and therefore it becomes about you. And when you're having good days, you're amazing, and when you're having bad days, you're rubbish. And of course, that's never true. You're never as good as you think, and you're never as bad as you think. And it's about having that balance of separating you from the business when it is you is quite difficult. Yeah. So I didn't find it lonely as in I felt alone, but it can be tough. Yeah. So again, getting a bit of perspective is important. Yeah. In terms of work-life balance, I could say a couple of things that are probably a bit unfashionable. The first thing I think is I have a work-life balance today. Yeah. That's easy for me to say, having been in business now for 13 years or something for myself. But I think at the beginning I didn't have a work-life balance. I think at the beginning I was working silly hours, 70, 80 hours a week. And actually, I know it's very unfashionable to say this, but I think you have to. I think at some point, you don't necessarily... I don't think you should be doing that forever. I mean, if you're doing it forever, there's a problem. Yeah. But I think to get anything starting, you know, it's tough. Yeah. And if you think if you're unfit and then you take up running, I would imagine that at the beginning it's really painful and tough, and then you have to break through that, and eventually you get to an equilibrium because you reach a level of fitness and everything else. And I'd say it's a little bit like that with a business. You know, to get that momentum to start it, you're pushing completely uphill. And that's tough, and it needs dedication and hard work and put some hours in. I think you do need to have a goal in mind where you're going to get to a point where I can't be doing this forever because it's no good for me, my health and my relationships and all those other things. So I think as long as you recognise this can't be forever, then I think that's okay. And the other thing I would say, which I thought was absolutely brilliant, I don't want to misquote, but I think it was Marissa Mayer, who is now in charge at Yahoo. I think she said that about work-life balance, she was saying that people don't get demotivated by working hard. You know, working hard didn't kill anybody. It's having to give up the things you love that then demotivates and makes you unhappy and feels like you're working too hard.
And I guess that ties in with the thing that you're saying, that you always followed what you're passionate about and what you enjoyed.
Yeah.
I knew this would happen. When I'm interviewing anyone who's really interesting, which is all the time, but especially someone like you who's also an expert in marketing and so on, I knew this interview would take slightly longer than I thought, which is good. So I'm going to pause the camera and make it a two-part interview and just come back to just hear more about your thoughts and your learnings along your journey. And it would be good to just talk a little bit about how you run your business. Now, one of the things that really intrigues me, I get a sense that you've taken a lot of time to set up your business or your businesses in a way that really suit you, and I'd really love to hear a little bit about that, because I think that's really important to the sole trader, where you go out, you've got a passion, hopefully things happen, but then there's going to be no doubt all sorts of challenges, and then you've got to kind of refocus. So I'm going to pause the camera there and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more.